Of our program, 6 minutes past the hour. Tom Hartman here with you, and Mike Papantonio on the line with us. He of Ring of Fire with the Sam Cedar and Bobby Kennedy Jr. Ringoffire.com. It is ringoffire.com, right, Pap?
It is.
Yeah.
It is.
But Ring of Fire Radio is how we refer to it. And there's also, in fact, you can find a link and a picture of Pap right at the top of our website. He's a friend of the show. And Pap, two things I wanted to talk to you about. You're an attorney who deals very often with these cases of people being injured and whatnot. The first is the KBR, this defense contractor, has apparently caused some deaths of American soldiers in Iraq, or had some involvement in something that led to their deaths or their sickness, and they want we, the taxpayers, to pay the bill. And the second is that the gun industry apparently has blanket immunity. They can't be sued the way the tobacco industry could be sued. And y'all participated, I believe, in going after the tobacco companies back in the day, and which caused them to change their ways in a significant way. But we can't do the same thing with the guns. So those are my two topics. Let me just, I wound you up. Let me let you go off on it.
Well, first of all, the KBR story is an interesting story because it's showing us the backstory to having private contractors come in and do what government should be doing. The idea, what happened in this case is you had $85 million that was awarded to several servicemen that are dying of cancer or dying of various diseases related to a product that KBR used on a job site. Now, it was a simple process that was taking place. They were simply trying to create a water solution, a water system there in Iraq after we invaded. But they didn't tell the people that were using the product that they were using to make the system work would kill them. Now, did they know it? Absolutely. Did they cover it up? Of course they did. It's KBR. And did they distort the truth even after it was very obvious that they had lied to these people? So right now you have servicemen dying of untreatable cancer, along with a whole host of other neurological issues that they're faced with, neurological, pulmonary issues, just a whole host of very specific kinds of illnesses related to this particular chemical. Now, here's the point. What happened was this trial has now reminded us of who KBR is. KBR, you remember, is the company that in 2002 paid out millions of dollars to the Justice Department for obscene overbilling of taxpayers in the military process in Iraq and Afghanistan. Their sister company, the subsidiary Halliburton, is the subsidiary that was caught selling pulse neutron generators that were used to detonate nuclear weapons. They took those and they sold them to Muammar Gaddafi in Libya, knowing that he was going to use them in an effort to try to detonate nuclear weapons. So this is a culture of crime. Both of these companies, KBR especially, we've known about the culture of crime. But what we also learned in this case is that the Pentagon and Congress were so anxious to pay their pals back. You had the Dick Cheney group that was, that's where, from Halliburton, KBR. The Dick Cheney group was awarded these huge contracts in a setting where they knew, this was the contract, it was unilaterally done. Company would draw the contract up. Pentagon would say, okay, well, in the contract, they would put in there that we can kill people, we can engage in criminal conduct, we can do virtually anything that would put most people in prison, and you have to indemnify us, taxpayer, for our bad conduct. Virtually unheard of. The only time that this came into effect, you don't see this in most governmental contracts. The only time you see it is this type of governmental contracts because Richard Nixon granted this kind of broad expanse of immunity for Pentagon contracts. The other part of it, Tom, is that the Pentagon is so brain dead that even after reviewing them, they didn't negotiate anything because they were getting calls from Dick Cheney. And Dick Cheney says, these are my pals, I want this to happen, and if you follow the money on this story, it goes right up to Dick Cheney.
Well, and in fact, that was my next question was, Dick Cheney was the CEO of Halliburton, and Halliburton was nearly bankrupt.
Right. Because
they had acquired Dresser Industries, which has this huge asbestos liability. And all of a sudden, Dick Cheney becomes vice president. All of a sudden, Halliburton's no longer teetering on the edge of bankruptcy.
Yeah, people don't know that story. People have thought that Halliburton's always this flourishing company. No, you're right. They were ready to go out of business. So listen, this is a Pentagon that allowed this to happen. They allowed their criminal friends to come in for paybacks. Now, understand, Tom, this is the same Pentagon that allowed $12 billion in cash money that was delivered on a C-130 to Iraq after we invaded. It disappeared, and the Pentagon said, golly, we don't know where it went. So there's many parts.
This was a pile of pallets of $100 bills that were shrink-wrapped in plastic that was literally large enough to be seen from outer space.
Right.
That vanished.
If you ask
I'm not making this up.
No, it's true.
It was several truckloads of $100 bills.
Tom, it came in on C-130s. There was so much cash money. If you ask the Pentagon today what happened to it, they don't know. This is the same Pentagon that has allowed these war profiteers, first of all, to change the way we do business and come in rather than have government and having the military handle their own water delivery problems or their own cafeteria issues or their own building issues. They brought in all these private war profiteers, and we saw this broad expanse of private contracts in war zones. And this is what the Republicans have wanted forever, because it's a great way to pay back their pals that have given them this big, huge amount of political money. It's not just a Republican story. It's a Democrat story. They have been just as awful where it comes to holding these
It's really a story of how the Supreme Court, by ruling that corporations are people and money is speech, has corrupted our small d democracy. And apropos of that corruption, how did it ever happen that you could sue the tobacco companies for selling things that kill people and get them to change their behavior, so at the very least their product is a little less likely to kill, and it doesn't kill quite as many people? But you can't do the same thing with the gun industry.
It started in 2005 when you had George Bush deliver this wonderful thing to the gun industry. But he wasn't just delivering it to the gun industry. The NRA came in with a bill and said, we want total immunity because we're being sued. We're being sued because you have lawyers like me and my friends up in New York and California, some people that were uniting to bring cases like this, that said they want to sue us because we're building mechanisms that are cop killers. We're creating ammunition that has the ability to pierce through a SWAT armor or body armor. We're building gun mechanisms that has the ability to kill 100 people in less than 20 seconds. So what we did is you had lawyers that were bringing lawsuits and saying, listen, there has to be some responsibility because a lot of this, Tom, was taken by way of the black market. There were design defects in the guns. There was defects in the way they were marketing the guns. It was simply a criminal enterprise where we brought RICO cases against some of these companies, and all of a sudden the NRA gets together with the Chamber of Commerce, by the way, the U.S. Chamber of Commerce. They get together with ALEC. They get together with all of the usual suspects, and they create legislation that gives this industry total, utter immunity. They can do whatever the hell they want. They can make something as defective as they want. They have no need to improve anything. Now, I will tell you this. Before they were given that immunity, we were already making inroads in making this industry more responsible. Wow. But after the Congress gave them immunity in 2005, it has been lawless. It has been an expanse of criminals in every kind of way, not just the criminals carrying the guns, but the criminals who are manufacturing the guns. They're doing it in places like Eastern Europe, parts of Asia, bringing it in through all types of black market avenues.
Amazing. Amazing. Mike Papantonio, ringofire.com, Ring of Fire Radio. Pap, you always astound me. Thank you so much for the information.
Thank you, Tom.
Great talking with you. 15 minutes.